All right, we've got a story for you today that honestly sounds like it's pulled straight from a spy thriller. We're talking a commercial flight, a fighter jet, and a forced landing. But the real story here, the one we're going to unpack, isn't just about a hijacking. It's about how a simple messaging app completely changed the rules of modern warfare.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's May 23rd, 2021. You're on Ryanair flight FR 4978, flying from Athens, Greece, over to Vilnius, Lithuania. Everything is completely normal.
So, the plane is literally just minutes away from landing safely in Lithuania when, out of nowhere, the pilots get this frantic message from Belarusian air traffic control. They're saying there's a bomb on the plane. And before they can even really process what's happening, a Belarusian MiG-29 a fighter jet, appears right alongside them. They've got no choice. They have to divert and land in Minsk.
But here's where it gets really weird. The plane lands, but there's no bomb squad, nobody's rushing to disarm a device. Instead, Belarusian security forces board the plane, walk down the aisle, and arrest one passenger, a 26-year-old journalist named Roman Protasevich. That bomb threat? Yeah, it was a complete and total lie.
So that official story, it just fell apart almost immediately. International investigators later confirmed the whole bomb threat was deliberately faked. So what was this really all about? I mean, this was a massive operation, way too complicated for just one person. The real target had to be something much bigger.
And while yes, Roman Protasevich was the guy they physically arrested, you have to think about this. You don't mobilize your country's air traffic control system and scramble your air force just for one journalist. That doesn't make any sense.
No, the real target here wasn't the man. It was the information channel he helped build, an opposition group called Nexta, which basically lived on the messaging app Telegram. This was a nation-state using its military might to silence a digital network.
And this is the absolute key, captured perfectly in this quote from our source material. The Belarusian government saw the influence of this channel as such a deep existential threat that it justified a military operation. This one incident just ripped the curtain back on a whole new strategic reality.
Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? How in the world does a simple Telegram channel become so powerful that a government is willing to risk an international crisis just to shut it down?
Well, if you go back to the massive protests in Belarus in 2020, the government controlled pretty much all the traditional media. Nexta became the place to go for unfiltered information. It wasn't just reporting the news, though. It was a lifeline for the opposition, sharing videos of police violence and even helping protesters figure out safe routes to take.
So, why Telegram? What made it the perfect weapon here? Well, unlike a TV station or a newspaper, there's no physical office in the country for the government to raid. And it's different from other social media, too. It's this unique hybrid. It's part private messaging app, part public newswire. This structure lets activists in exile, like Protasevich, directly influence events happening back home. It becomes, as our source calls it, a true infrastructure for dissent.
This whole incident was a massive wake-up call for everybody. It was a signal that the idea of information warfare had fundamentally changed. We've moved way beyond just propaganda and into something much more operational.
You know, in the old model, information was always top-down. The state had the megaphone and everybody else just had to listen. But the new model? It's a distributed network. Any citizen with a phone can capture what's happening, and channels like Nexta curate it and blast it out to the world. Power isn't about censorship anymore. It's about who can win the battle for attention.
And it's not about tweets versus tanks anymore. That's old thinking. This is a fusion. A Telegram channel can be informational, sure, sharing news. But it can also be used for psychological warfare, to shape how people feel. And it can even get operational. We're talking fundraising, recruiting people, even telling them where to go on the ground.
Okay, so what does this all mean in the real world? This shift creates a whole new playbook of challenges and, frankly, opportunities for just about every major player on the world stage.
For authoritarian regimes, the lesson is pretty stark. A dissident with a smartphone in another country is now a strategic threat. For democracies, it's a really tough balancing act. How do you protect your society from this stuff without becoming a censor yourself? And for the dissident movements, these tools give them incredible power, yeah, but they also expose them to all new kinds of dangers, like spying and infiltration.
Look, it's tempting to see the hijacking in Belarus as just some crazy one-off event. But really,
We should see it as a prophecy, a little sneak peek into what the future of conflict is going to look like.
Because this is where we're headed. Future conflicts won't just be fought on land, at sea, and in the air. They're going to unfold across encrypted apps with AI-generated stories. Just imagine the next false bomb threat isn't a phone call, but a perfectly engineered deepfake emergency alert that causes mass panic. The goal isn't just to win a battle, it's to weaponize reality itself.
And that leaves us with this final, really critical question. The Ryanair hijacking showed us that the front lines of conflict aren't just in physical space anymore. They exist in our social feeds, in our encrypted messages. So in a world where the very idea of reality is up for grabs, how do you even win?